Welcome back to another episode of No Shame with Shane, where the takes have no lies, no bias, but most importantly, no shame. I'm your host, Shane Ford, and with all the shameless sports takes. Now, looking at the NFL draft this year, the 2026 NFL draft is over. And honestly, the Birds had a top three draft of any team in the NFL. Top three draft of any team in the NFL. You can say whatever team, you can put whatever team you want in that top three conversation. You know, the Browns, the Cowboys, Jets are definitely in there. But the Eagles definitely had a top three draft haul of any team in the NFL this year. Like, there's no team other than the Jets. There's no team in the NFL that had a head and shoulders better draft haul than the Eagles. There's no team. Like the Jets, for me, they get one because it's hard not to win the draft when you have 3 first-round picks. They got starters with all 3 picks. David Bailey, one of, if not the best defensive player in this draft class. Omar Cooper, they needed a receiver. Kenyon Sadiq, the best tight end in the class. So Jets, you can say the Jets won, but after the Jets, there's no other team that head and shoulders had a better draft haul than the Eagles. The Browns have a case. They have a case for top 3. Casey Concepcion and Spencer Fano filling their 2 biggest needs on the squad. Cowboys, Caleb Downs, Malachi Lawrence, Jaysean Barham, 3 absolute dogs on defense, one of which might be the best overall player in this draft class. Don't know how he fell to pick 12. That's crazy. Like, whichever team you want to put in there, the Eagles are in there. The Eagles are in that room for sure, regardless of what other team you want to put at that 2 or 3 spot. Like, bro, the Eagles draft class this year, Makai Lemon at pick 20, that's insane. I don't know how he did that. I don't know how he did that. Round 2, Eli Stowers, top 2 tight end in college football. Round 3, Markel Bell, freakish left tackle out of Miami. Round 5, we fill out QB depth with Cole Payton. Round 6, we reinforce the offensive line with Micah Morris. Round 7, Cole Wisniewski, who could really be an X factor on special teams this year, especially now that we don't have Sidney Brown on the roster. Then we get what could be the unicorn of the draft this year in Uar Bernard, who measurement for measurement, mark for mark, is comparable to Myles Garrett, a walking Hall of Famer in the NFL. Like, there's no way the Eagles didn't have a top 3 draft of any team in the NFL. There's no way. There's no other team, maybe aside from the Jets, that had a head and shoulders better draft haul than the Eagles. There's just no way. The Eagles are definitely top 3, bro. But like, honestly, Howie Roseman is the best GM in all of football. That's what it's like. If we didn't know that before, if we didn't already go into this draft knowing that, then wake up. like Howie Roseman just solidified his case as the best GM in all of football in this 2026 draft class. Like, bro, you look at all the talent Howie Roseman has drafted. Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Nakobe Dean, Jahad Campbell, who is still baking in the oven, like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. Like, bro, there's so many Pro Bowlers to all pro guys that Howie Roseman has taken in the draft. Not through free agency, not through trades. Those are homegrown talents. Like, honestly, Howie Roseman is the best GM in all of football, best drafter in all of football. Like, there are names that comes close when it comes to drafting, like Jerry Jones for sure. Veach with the Kansas City Chiefs, John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks, like you could say. But like, in terms of being a GM and a drafter, there's no other GM in the NFL that is a better GM and a better drafter than Howie Roseman. There's no other name that fits that caliber, that meets that criteria for me in the NFL. There's no other name. Like, bro, looking at the first pick Howie Roseman made this year was Makai Lemon. We trade up to get Makai Lemon. We stole Makai Lemon away from the Steelers in their house. In their house. Bro, the fact that we got Makai Lemon, it honestly amazes me. It amazes me. Like, I don't understand. Like, the fact that we got Makai Lemon at pick 20 amazes me because I have no idea how this guy was projected as only the third best receiver in this class. Only that, like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand how he was projected as only the third best receiver in this class. Like, he was the most, like, if you're looking at Makai Lemon in comparison to all of these other receivers in the class, he's the most complete receiver in this class. Like, if you look at the two best receivers that were the two projected best receivers in this class, and Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson, like, bro, Makai Lemon, he was way more productive than both of them, but he was more electric than Carnell Tate, and he's less injury prone than Jordan Tyson, and still has all of the upside. All the upside. Like, bro, like Makai Lemon, he's got elite hands, he's got elite ball tracking, elite ball security. He's great at high pointing catches, winning in those 50-50 catch situations, contested catch situations. He's an explosive route runner. He can consistently create separation at the top of his routes. He is by far the best yak receiver out of anyone else in this class. There's no other receiver in this class that can do what he can do with the ball in his hands after the catch. And he's the most physical. Like, he's the best run blocker in this class as well. Like, he's not afraid to put his helmet in somebody's chest and create run lanes for his running backs. Like, there's no receiver in this draft class that to me is better than Makai Lemon. I don't understand how Makai Lemon was only projected as the third best receiver in this class with everything that he brings as just an overall talent. Everything that he's able to do as an overall talent, it just doesn't make sense to me. Makai Lemon is the best receiver in this draft class. He's the best receiver in this class. Like, the Eagles on Howie Roseman drafted the best receiver in this 2026 draft class. Makai Lemon is the best receiver. I don't understand how he was only projected as the third best receiver when he was the most productive out of anyone else in this class. The most productive. Like, Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson, the guys who were projected as 1 and 1B, they were 800 to 700 yard guys this year. 800 to 700 yard guys. Casey Concepcion and Omar Cooper, they were 800 to 900 yard guys this year. Makai Lemon had over 1,100 receiving yards on the season and had double-digit touchdowns. Like, bro, what are we talking about? He was Makai Lemon was the best receiver in this draft class. He was way more productive than anyone else, but also he has more skills. He has a higher ceiling, in my opinion. He's the best yak receiver out of anyone else in this class. He still has elite hands, elite ball tracking. He can make those contested 50-50 grabs. He's way more physical than anyone else in this class. Like, bro, Makai Lemon is the best receiver in this draft class. Howie Roseman drafted the best receiver in this draft class. 1,000%. There's no other receiver that comes close. Like, especially when you look at there's no way if I'm the Titans, I'm drafting Carnell Tate at number 4 when Makai Lemon and Jordan Tyson are still available. Like, you can make the argument for Jordan Tyson, I guess, because of his injury history, but Makai Lemon? Why am I drafting Carnell Tate number 4 overall before I draft Makai Lemon, who can honestly do way more as a receiver and proved it this year in his production? Bro, like, and I'm not the only one that feels this way, bro. Like Malik Neighbors, on draft night, he reacted to the Titans drafting Carnell Tate 4th overall. This is what he had to say.
You were saying, do you see him as a number 1 in the NFL?
No, I don't see him being a number 1. He hasn't been the number 1 on the team that he's been on. I mean, you have to be a number 1 on the team that you're coming from to be a number 1 receiver that the team that you're going to. Because they're going to trust you a lot to be the first person that they throw the ball to, the first person they count on to win the rep. You have to be that. You can't be the second. Anybody.
Bro, like, he literally said it. Like, there's no way if I'm the Titans, I'm drafting Carnell Tate number 4 overall when Makai Lemon is still on the board, because Carnell Tate wasn't even the number 1 option on his own team. How can I trust Carnell Tate to be the number 1 receiver on my team when he wasn't the number 1 receiver on his own team? Now, I get it. Jeremiah Smith is a freak. He could likely be a top 2 to 1st overall pick in the draft this year, maybe top 2 because he's not a quarterback, but just one of those. He's one of those ones coming out of college. But Carnell Tate didn't even have number one level receiver production coming out of college. Like, and I know people will make the argument, well, he's an Ohio State receiver. Receiver those guys always translate into number one more times than none, will translate to number one receivers at the NFL level. But bro, like, comparing Carnell Tate to Emeka Egbuka and JSN coming out of college is honestly dumb to me, because like they're not on the same level at all. Like, Ohio State Egbuka and Ohio State JSN are on a totally different level than Ohio State Carnell Tate. Like, Carnell Tate this year coming out of Ohio State, receiver U, was an 800-yard receiver. 800-yard receiver, single digit, less than 10 touchdowns on the season. Egbuka coming out of Ohio State was a 1,000-yard receiver. Double-digit touchdowns. JSN coming out of Ohio State, his last fully healthy season at Ohio State, was a 1,600-yard receiver with 9 touchdowns. Like, comparing, like, Egbuka and JSN coming out of Ohio State are on a totally different level than Carnell Tate coming out of Ohio State. So there's no way, if I'm the Titans, I'm taking Carnell Tate with the 4th pick in the draft when a receiver like Makai Lemon is still on the board. There's no way. Like, Carnell Tate was not a better receiver coming out of college than Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon is the best receiver in this draft class, and Howie Roseman snatched him up. Like, honestly, Makai Lemon might be at that rate. Makai Lemon was a steal for us at pick 20. A steal for us at pick 20. There's just no way. But honestly, Makai Lemon is the perfect complement to this Eagles offense. Makai Lemon is the perfect complement to this receiver room. When you look at Devontae Smith, Dontavian Wicks, Dallas Goedert, just talking overall pass catchers, like, Makai Lemon is the perfect complement to this room, to this arsenal, because Makai Lemon will now serve as the middle of the field hash threat that we had in Jahan Dotson, that we kind of have in Darius Cooper, kind of. But like, Makai Lemon is, let me break this down again. Makai Lemon is the perfect complement to this receiver room, to this pass catching room. You talk about Devontae Smith, Dontavian Wicks, Dallas Goedert. Makai Lemon is the perfect complement to this pass catching room, because he would serve as a hash middle of the field threat in light of Jahan Dotson's departure, in light of his absence. Because that's what we had in Jahan Dotson, except Makai Lemon is a better yak guy. Like, Makai Lemon is better after the catch. Like, Jahan Dotson is dangerous, especially it was a dangerous threat at slot receiver, but Makai Lemon has a higher ceiling. Like, I was against the Jahan Dotson departure, but this Makai Lemon pickup more than makes up for that. For sure. Because Makai Lemon can be super dangerous at that slot receiver position, which is honestly something this offense needed in light of letting Jahan Dotson go, with the receivers that we currently have on the roster that are expected to play next year in Smitty, Dontavian Wicks, Hollywood Brown, and then of course our tight end and Dallas Goedert. So that's 100%. Like, Makai Lemon was the perfect addition to this offense, because he gives us that hash threat that we just didn't have on the roster. He gives us that middle of the field threat that we didn't have on the roster. Like, the Eagles' base offense are an 11 personnel offense. That's 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. You have your X and Z receiver lined up towards the boundaries. You have your Y receiver lined up inside the X, sort of in that slot at the sort of closer to the hash. You have your tight end on the opposite side of the Y, attached to the line of scrimmage. And then you have your running back in the backfield on either side of the quarterback. Looking at our receivers, all of our receivers, aside from Makai Lemon, are mainly X and Z receivers. At least that's what we've seen them play more as. Like Devontae Smith is predominantly an X and Z receiver. That could be in part due to the lack of creativity in moving him around, sort of how we've seen other offenses move their star receivers around. But we've seen Devontae Smith play mainly as an X and Z receiver. Dontavian Wicks was an X and Z receiver under Matt LaFleur. Hollywood Brown played the same way under Greg Roman in Baltimore, under Andy Reid in Kansas City. Like, Makai Lemon is that wide receiver that we were missing. Makai Lemon is that wide receiver that we were missing. A guy who can be dangerous in the slot. He can definitely be a middle of the field threat to hash threat for Jalen Hurts, allowing Jalen Hurts to be more lethal, taking more lethal in terms of taking shots to the middle of the field as opposed to just like one-on-one boundary matchups where like we've seen over the past couple of years with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown lined up on the outside. So Makai Lemon just adds another sort of layer to this offense, especially to the passing game. He adds another layer to this passing game that we just did not have going into this 2026 season without Jahan Dotson. He adds another layer. And honestly, like, Makai Lemon serving as a middle of the field hash threat for Jalen Hurts is huge because that's not something we've consistently had. It's not something we've consistently had. Like, Jahan Dotson did have that ability to be that type of that threat at slot receiver, hash type of guy, middle of the field type of guy. He just didn't get the ball enough to really solidify himself as such. And then Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, Patullo always had them lined up towards the boundary, never really moved them around, sort of in terms to, an attempt to try to scheme them open the way we saw Clint Kubiak scheme open JSN last year, the way we've seen Sean McVay scheme open Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, over their years of playing. Like, Patullo didn't do that for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So it was harder for Jalen Hurts to be as lethal in the middle of the field to the hash when his best receivers are always lined up to the boundary. Having a guy like Makai Lemon, if this offense is expected to be as basic as it has been, at least alignment wise, having Makai Lemon would be huge because it would allow Jalen Hurts to be more lethal, in the middle of the field. As opposed to, it would allow him to take more shots to the middle of the field and stretch the field out more, as opposed to just looking for those ISO matchups, those one-on-one matchups to the boundary with Devontae Smith and now what will likely be Dontavian Wicks on, as those X and Z type of receivers. So Makai Lemon was a huge pickup for the Eagles, but Makai Lemon is not going to be a replacement for AJ Brown. He's not going to be a replacement for AJ Brown. Like, the only two receivers that can be a equal swap in, swap out, guy for guy sort of replacement for AJ Brown would be Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson. Like, there's no other receivers at that caliber that could be a proper equal replacement for AJ Brown other than Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson. There's no other receivers. Maybe Puka, maybe. But there's no other receivers that could be an equal sort of replacement in terms of matching his production, filling that production void by themselves, other than those two, arguably three guys. So it's definitely not going to be a rookie Makai Lemon that's going to come in and be able to give us 1,500 yards on the season and just come in being a dominant number one receiver in the NFL. Especially at the rate in which we actually get the ball around to our skill players on offense, because of how much this Eagles offense has relied on the run in the past. There's just no way. Now, while he won't be an immediate replacement for AJ Brown, he will be a valuable weapon in what will be now sort of a passing game by committee moving forward. Like, Makai Lemon, he won't be a guy for guy replacement for AJ Brown in terms of production, but he will be a key piece, a key cog in what will be a passing game by committee moving forward. So, like, instead of having two dominant receiver ones in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, who can both give you 1,400 to 1,500 yards on a season, who have that sort of potential, it'll be Devontae Smith and several other receivers who can give you 700 to maybe 800 yards each. That's kind of what we're working with. It'll be way more of a passing game by committee moving forward, as opposed to just having one dominant receiver one in AJ Brown who can carry the bulk load of the targets. But that's still a formula for playoff success, because we've seen other offenses be lethal with that similar sort of concept. Like, especially after losing their receiver one. Like the Chiefs, after losing Tyreek Hill, they transitioned to more of a passing game by committee. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, a declining Travis Kelce who can still give you about 700 yards, who can still be a 700-yard guy. Matt LaFleur offense, that's been their bread and butter, being a passing game by committee. Like after losing Davante Adams, they still, they became a passing game by committee with Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, drafting Matthew Golden, and then improving Tucker Kraft. Their issue was just injuries, but we've seen offenses be lethal with this type of attack, with this type of attack in their offense. We've seen units be lethal with this sort of arrangement. The Eagles, with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, the Eagles can definitely be lethal in this sort of passing game by committee, especially when we do have a true receiver one in Devontae Smith who can still be a dominant receiver one, but also now in a receiving room that is filled of guys who can also be 700 to 800-yard threats individually. So Mekhi Lemon won't be a replacement for A.J. Brown in terms of making up that void in production by himself, but he will be a key piece in a passing game by committee that can help fill that void as a collective. So we still have a formula for a Super Bowl even without A.J. Brown. Like, honestly, this receiving room, like, we are honestly good without A.J. Brown, bro. Like, we're good without A.J. Brown. We're good without A.J. Brown. We still, without A.J. Brown now, we still have a true receiver one in Devontae Smith who can be a 1,500-yard receiver easy. We now have a guy who has an extremely high ceiling as a slot receiver in Mekhi Lemon, who could be a borderline 900 to 1,000-yard receiver if he gets the proper targets. Then we have two other key receivers who can be 700-yard receivers in Dontavian Wicks and Hollywood Brown. Dontavian Wicks being a contested catch type of guy who can win in those 50-50 ball situations, but then Hollywood Brown being more of a deep threat sort of speedster in this offense as well, stretching out, kind of taking the top off of a defense. Like, the reason why I know this receiving room is going to be good without A.J. Brown is because of how well all of these pieces complement each other. Like, we still have our receiver one in Devontae Smith. We have our number two to slot receiver in Mekhi Lemon, who can be a gadget type of receiver. He can be a deep threat receiver towards, like, in the middle of the field on the hashes. He can be a gadget type of receiver, be a guy who can just make magic with the ball in his hands, get him the ball in open field. He can operate in those, behind the line of scrimmage type of plays. He can operate in those tunnel screens and those bubble screens. You have a guy in Hollywood Brown who can kind of do, who kind of has a similar skill set, but is a little more of a speedster. You have a guy in Dontavian Wicks who can be a sort of a security blanket for Jalen Hurts, a third down type of receiver for Jalen Hurts, a big catch type of receiver for Jalen Hurts. And then you have Devontae Smith, who can do everything, who can do it all. He can be your dominant receiver one. He can be your deep threat. He can be your flat out speedster. He can be your gadget type of receiver on, like, jet sweeps and, like, screen type of plays. Like, this receiving room honestly complements each other so well. I know for a fact this offense is going to be fine without A.J. Brown, considering the talent that is still left in his absence. The talent that is still left with the quarterback that they have in the backfield in a Super Bowl MVP in Jalen Hurts. With an offensive player of the year in running back Saquon Barkley. With what should be a healthy offensive line this year, when healthy, is the best offensive line in football this year. Like, this Eagles offense is going to be fine without A.J. Brown. It's honestly going to be fine. But, bro, something else I like about Mekhi Lemon is the fact that his physicality, bro. Like, he's a gritty type of, he can be a gritty type of cleanup type of receiver. Like, Mekhi Lemon can be that sort of janitor cleanup type of receiver that can, like, not a guy who's not afraid to, like, roll a blue collar type of a guy that's not afraid to, like, roll up his sleeves, get his hands dirty on those gotta have it plays, like those third down plays, whether it's third and short, third and long. whether he needs to make whether he needs to make the dirty grab or make or get physical in the run block, get his head in somebody's chest and create a run lane for Saquon Barkley or Tanks Bigsby. Like Makai Lemon can not only be an elite playmaker, he can not only be an elite playmaker in the NFL, but he can also be your cleanup to like the guy who can do the dirty jobs. The guy who can get the dirty work done, who can kind of make those cleanup plays in those situational in situational football. So I really like Makai Lemon's versatility, but honestly, like Makai Lemon again is the best receiver in this draft class. Best receiver he's honestly different because he's a guy that has a very high ceiling, but also has a pretty high floor as well. Like in terms of his ceiling, when I look at Makai Lemon, I see a Puka Nacua, a Cooper Kupp, a JSN, a guy who may not be the most talented receiver in the NFL, but who is capable of always making a play. Always making a play, whether it's as a gadget type of receiver, getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage, whether it's making the big catch, the 50-50, the 50-50 catch, tracking the ball at its high point, attacking the ball at the high pointing a catch. But then he can also be but then at his floor, he's a physical cleanup guy. He's a Christian Kirk. Like he's a Tyler Lockett, like a third down guy. So like not only does Makai Lemon have a high ceiling in terms of being comparable to Puka, JSN, Cooper Kupp, even Steve Smith, but he also has a pretty high floor in terms of just being able to be a gotta have it, cleanup janitor role type of receiver like a Christian Kirk or a Tyler Lockett, who can convert on those third downs, on those fourth downs. He can just do different things as a receiver. There is a lot of range to his game where at the very least in Makai Lemon, you are still getting a consistent playmaker at receiver. At his heights, at the highest in Makai Lemon, you're getting just a flat out elite receiver, potentially top 5 receiver, top 5 playmaker in the NFL. For sure. So Makai Lemon is special, bro. But someone else who's special is Eli Stowers. Eli Stowers is special, bro, because honestly, Eli Stowers to me has an extremely high ceiling as a tight end in the NFL. Like this guy has only been playing tight end for 2 years in college. Formerly a quarterback, he plays tight end for only 2 years in college and quickly becomes a top 2 tight end in all of college football. To many, regarded as the best tight end in college football, considering he won the John Mackey Award, which is awarded to the best tight end in college football. Like, bro, you look at Eli Stowers and Kenyon Sadiq side by side. Eli Stowers, he's slightly less athletic than Kenyon Sadiq while still having elite athleticism. His game speed is on par with Kenyon Sadiq, but honestly, Eli Stowers has a better catch radius than Kenyon Sadiq. Eli Stowers is a better pass catcher, has more consistent hands than Kenyon Sadiq. He has an elite catch radius. Like he can catch the ball behind him if it's underthrown. He can catch it. He can extend and catch it in front of him if it's overthrown. He can make those 50-50 grabs. He can make those catches in traffic through contact. And then he of course can hold. He's also elite after the catch as well. He's not as athletic as Kenyon Sadiq after the catch, but he's honestly right behind him. Eli Stowers has a very high ceiling as a tight end. He can honestly be an elite tight end in the NFL. He can be. He can be an elite tight end in the NFL. And honestly, the Eagles always have really good tight ends. We always have really good tight ends. Eli Stowers can be the next chapter. He can be the next chapter. Like the Eagles have had good tight ends for really the past 2 decades. Brent Selleck, 2010s era. Zach Ertz, late 2010s era. Dallas Goedert, 2020s era. 3 good to great tight ends. 3 champions. Eli Stowers can be next. Eli Stowers can definitely be next. If there's any organization that can maximize Eli Stowers' potential at tight end, it's the Eagles. Because the Eagles do nothing but breed Pro Bowl to all-pro guys at the tight end position. For sure. Brent Selleck, top 10 tight end in his prime. Zach Ertz, top 2 to 3 tight end in his prime. Dallas Goedert, top 5 tight end right now in the NFL. if there's any organization that can maximize Eli Stowers, it's the Eagles. Eli Stowers has an incredibly high ceiling as a tight end in the NFL for sure. Someone else who has a pretty high ceiling, Markel Bell. Markel Bell honestly excites me. Like, you can never go wrong with just drafting an overall athlete. You know, you can never go wrong with that. Like, Markel Bell is a freakish athlete at left tackle. 6'9", 340. He can move. Only 0 sacks allowed out of 558 pass blocking snaps. 0 sacks allowed. Like, dude is just a straight up fortress. The only thing that concerns me about Markel Bell, though, is his height. Like, I think when he's going up against, like, his height concerns me when he'll be going up against more like speedy edge rushers, bendy edge rushers, guys that have a quick get off and guys that can duck underneath those long arms and get their hips around that corner. Like, that's the only thing that concerns me about Markel Bell, because one of the main rules in football is lowest man always wins. Lowest man always wins. The only thing that concerns me about Markel Bell is his height. 6'9", even though he's a fortress of a tackle, even though, you know, he's one of those freaks, those freakish linemen in the draft this year. 6'9", 340 pounds, you know, 0 sacks allowed in over 550 pass blocking snaps. The only thing that concerns me, though, is his height. Because one of the biggest rules, one of the base rules in football is low man always wins. Lowest man to the ground always wins. When Markel Bell is going up against those sort of 6'1" to 6'2" type of guys coming off the edge, those more speedy edge rushers, those bendy edge rushers, those guys that can get their hips around the corner but duck up, that can get off the ball quick, that can duck up underneath those long arms of his. That's what really concerns me, because he kind of already struggles against those type of guys. Like, he struggled against those type of guys in college. He struggled against guys that could bait him with the quick get off the ball, get him to sort of overset, and then that could like counter inside, whether in a spin move or whether a rip move to the inside. Like, we've seen him already kind of struggle against those type of edge rushers before. So that's the only thing that concerns me in terms of his translation to the NFL, is with that height, with how high he plays, is how he'll fare against those smaller, faster, quicker, bendier type of edge rushers, those like Von Miller type of builds, those Hassan Reddick type of guys, those Shaq Barrett type of guys. Current guys would be like Chop Robinson, Abdul Carter. When he sees those type of guys, that's where I'm concerned, because low man always wins. Like, as an edge rusher, I would rather go up against a 6'9" tackle, 340, than a guy who was like 6'4", 6'5", maybe even like 6'3", who is like 290, 280. Like, I would rather go up against a guy like Markel Bell. As an edge rusher, I would rather go up against a guy with the build of Markel Bell than a guy with the build of like a Lane Johnson or a Trent Williams. Like, status, ability aside, like, obviously those are two future Hall of Famers, but like blocking ability aside, I would rather go up against as a speedy edge rusher, I would rather go up against the taller tackle with the longer arms than the sort of smaller, more compact, quicker tackles like Lane Johnson and Trent Williams, because those guys are harder to get around. So that's the only thing that concerns me about Markel Bell, is his height, especially now that we don't have Jeff Stoutland sort of in the room, a guy that could really be able to develop Markel Bell into the type of all-pro that we're used to seeing Jeff Stoutland create. But speaking of Jeff Stoutland was recently on the New Heights podcast with Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce, talking about what was the real reason behind the offensive struggles for the squad last year. And this is what he had to say.
What happened last year, just in general? Like, what was the reason for the struggles in your mind? I don't know. What went wrong last season with the Birds?
Well, I think anytime things don't go well, and I don't want to sound like I'm on like in an interview for but it's the truth. It's execution, and it's calling the right play at the right time and not running bad plays into bad defenses.
Yeah.
I mean, it ain't that hard. I'm not going to sit here and make up all these. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, Jeff Stoutland was clear about what the reasoning was for the offensive struggle, and it was the play calling. It was the play calling. Like when he says execution, that like execution obviously could have been better, but the main issue that he honed in on was the play calling from Patullo and Sirianni. The play calling that led the Eagles to run 4 verts on the last play of a wild card playoff game against the 49ers where we're down. That's the type of idiotic decision making that he is saying led to the downfall of this Eagles offense. Honestly, Jeff Stoutland should have been OC. Like Jeff Stoutland should have been OC. If I had to choose between letting Stoutland walk from the team or promoting him, I'm going to promote him 10 times out of 10. I'm going to promote him 7 days a week. Like that's what, I'm not risking losing Jeff Stoutland to side with the guys who chose to run 4 verts with the game on the line with the wild card game on the line against the 49ers. I'm not siding with those guys over a guy in Jeff Stoutland who has done nothing but produce all pro guys during his entire tenure on the Eagles. That's what I'm not going to do. That's what I'm not going to do. Honestly, Jeff Stoutland has been the only irreplaceable coach on the offensive staff after Shane Steichen. He's been the only irreplaceable guy. Jeff Stoutland has been the most important offensive coach that the Eagles have had after Shane Steichen. He's been more important than every OC that we've ever had after Shane Steichen. More important. Jeff Stoutland was more valuable to the offense than Brian Johnson. Jeff Stoutland was more valuable to the offense than Kellen Moore. Jeff Stoutland was more valuable to the offense than Kevin Patullo. He would have been more valuable to the offense, even as just like a consultant. As a consultant in what Jeff Stoutland is expected to be this year, at least according to Lane Johnson. As a side consultant, not even an official coach, that version of Jeff Stoutland is more valuable to me than Sean Mannion. Like, there is no offensive coach that has been more valuable, that is more valuable to the staff than Jeff Stoutland. I would make Jeff Stoutland OC. I would have made Jeff Stoutland offensive coordinator. That's just what I would have done. Like, it honestly shocks me that Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni never thought once to give Jeff Stoutland a shot at being offensive coordinator. It honestly shocks me. Like, this guy has done nothing but breed Pro Bowlers and all-pro guys for the past decade straight. He's been run game coordinator for a little minute. Like, I'm honestly shocked that they never thought to give their most experienced offensive coach, their most successful offensive coach, a shot at calling the shots on offense for the entire unit. I'm honestly shocked. Like, if I had to choose between letting him walk or promoting Stoutland, I'm promoting Stoutland. I don't understand how you would choose a guy with no play calling experience in Kevin Patullo, a guy who only got the job because of his relationship with Sirianni. I don't understand how you would choose a guy with little to no coaching experience this year in Sean Mannion over a proven, bona fide leader of men, talent developer, like maximizer of potential in Jeff Stoutland. I don't understand how Jeff Stoutland wasn't even considered for offensive coordinator. If I was Howie Roseman, Jeff Stoutland would get the job that day. If Jeff Stoutland came to me and I'm Howie Roseman and he says, you either make me offensive coordinator or I'm walking, he has the job right then and there. He has the job on the spot because he deserves it. There's no way Jeff Stoutland didn't deserve, like Jeff Stoutland should have not only been offensive coordinator, he should have had a much bigger say in the play calling this past season, especially with how terrible the play calling was as a whole. The most predictable offense in the NFL for 2 out of the past 4 seasons. There's no way Stoutland did not deserve, especially having that seniority that he does on the staff. There's no way he did not deserve to have more of a say in the play calling. There's no way. But getting back to the draft, Howie Roseman secured the unicorn of the 2026 NFL draft in Uar Bernard. This guy is comparable to Myles Garrett by every measurement, every mark. This guy is comparable to Myles Garrett, who is a walking Hall of Famer in the NFL. Like, bro, he's the same height as Myles Garrett at 6'4", but he weighs more than Myles Garrett. He's a 306-pounder who can run a 4.63. A 4.63. He weighs more than Myles Garrett and can run slightly faster than Myles Garrett, who can run running a 4.63 to Myles Garrett's 4.64. He has a slightly bigger broad jump than Myles Garrett with a 10.10 to Myles Garrett's 10.8. He bench presses slightly less than Myles Garrett with 31 reps to Myles Garrett's 33 reps. But the fact that this guy is such an athletic freak that as a defensive tackle, he is comparable by every measurement you can think of to Myles Garrett, who is a freakishly athletic DN, which is a more athletic position than D tackle. That's honestly crazy to me. Like, it's crazy. And there's like, if there was any organization that can maximize Uar Bernard's physical gifts, it's the Eagles. This is the same organization that turned an Australian rugby player who didn't even know what a quarterback was in Jordan Mailata into an all-pro left tackle, one of, if not the best left tackle in the game of football. If the Eagles can do what they did with Jordan Mailata, imagine what this organization can do with someone who is more of a freakish athlete in Uar Bernard. This guy is comparable to Myles Garrett, a defensive end, as a defensive tackle. He is on par with Myles Garrett athletically as a defensive tackle. Imagine what this Eagles organization can do with that type of unit, with that type of stud, with that type of build. Like, it's honestly scary. It's honestly scary for the NFL, the fact that Howie Roseman secured a unicorn like Uar Bernard, because of the history that this organization has in maximizing its athletes. Like, this is the same organization, like I said before, that turned an Australian rugby player who didn't even know what a quarterback was in Jordan Mailata into the best left tackle in the entire league. If they can do what they did with Jordan Mailata, imagine what Howie Roseman and this organization can do with a guy who is even more freakishly athletic in Uar Bernard, who is on par athleticism-wise and talent-wise with Myles Garrett, a walking Hall of Famer in the NFL, who is comparable athletically to Myles Garrett, who is a defensive end, as a defensive tackle. Myles Garrett athleticism at the defensive tackle position, it's scary for the rest of the NFL, bro. But that's all we got for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. And I will be back later on with more Shameless Takes.